morning. I would like to be the third to welcome you to the regional conferences this morning. And I'd also like to be the first to congratulate you. I think this is the first initial announcement for this. So for those of you that were at our Children's Summit last year, you know that we did these data reports, and now we've got them again. And we know, will my clicker work? We know that as a result of these reports, the state median to case closure has dropped by 5 months between 2008 and 2009. So congratulations to all of you for your efforts. This is huge and very exciting for all of us involved. We also know that for children ages 0 to 3, which has been a focus of emphasis for the state of Nebraska, that the median time has dropped by 2 months since 2008. So a lot of your teams have improved. We're very excited about this, and I'd just like to say congratulations and thank you for working so hard in the state of Nebraska to improve the lives of children. All right, so to get started with the data reports, for those of you that don't have these reports, you're welcome to get them. They're out at the registration table. At the top of your report, you'll see your team name and the counties that are involved in that team. So if you don't recognize the counties that are listed, you may have ended up with the wrong reports. And if you'd like to see one of those reports, just let Kelly or myself or one of the other Through the Eyes initiative members know, and we can get that report to you. So you'll see that at the very top, followed by a brief description of where the data comes from. So for most of the state of Nebraska, the data comes from the justice system, which we use across the state to report court information. And then also from the Foster and Court Improvement website, which is based on HHS data. So you'll see at the bottom of that first page summary for the 2008 and 2009 for your team and the state, and then also for Missouri as a comparison in the national averages for specific case progression issues. On page 2, you'll see more 2008-2009 data for your team and state, and again, this page comes from Foster and Court Improvement data. And it's important to note that in some cases you want the bar to increase, and in some cases you want the bar to decrease. So I'd like to draw your attention to this briefly. So for example, re-entry within 12 months, we would like to see that go down. But the 2 or fewer moves percentages, we would like to see increase. So as you're looking at this data, don't look across the board hoping that all of them increase or all of them decrease, because they mean different things. All right, so starting on page 3, we get to justice data, which is the data that we analyze with the Court Improvement Project. And that comes from justice for all areas except Douglas County. So these are based on the cases that close within a calendar year. That is between January 1st and December 31st. At the top of your report, you'll see the number of cases for 2008 and then for 2009. And please note that those cases are based on the number of children that you had come through with cases that closed. So there are some of your some teams that use family level case information, and we actually use each child. And then there may be a mix of older cases and newer cases. So some of these cases may have been open for 5 or 6 years. Some of them may have closed within opened and closed within the calendar year of 2009, and all of those are included because we just look at when it closes and then use that to select the data we report from. So in all cases, we report to you the medians, and for those of you that have had a few years since you've been in statistics courses, and I know it's very early in the morning, so talking about this can be a little bit intimidating. But medians are just that middlemost number. So if we take all of the numbers and line them up from smallest to largest, the middle one is the median. So when you think about that median, that means that half of cases closed before that, if you're talking about time to case closure, for example, and half of your cases closed after that. So that's what the medians are. And then we've also included distributions, which are these sort of graphs here that you can see the percentage of cases within a particular bar. And those correspond with different categories that we have listed. And that sort of helps you also know, on average, how many cases are taking a particular time that's above or below the median. And then it's also a good idea, as you're looking for this, to sort of help you use the medians and the distributions to spot changes. So if you see a large difference in your median, you might also see where between 2008 and 2009, some of the bars got dramatically bigger or smaller from one year to the next. So you'll want to be on the lookout for those as you're looking through your data reports. So pages 4 and 5 are what provide you with information about time to first hearing, adjudication, disposition, and case closure. And we also have your proportion of cases that are meeting best practice recommendations, and those come from federal guidelines. So as you're looking for how well you're doing, you'll want to see that our goal is to have the vast majority of cases meet those federal guidelines.
Is that chart in our packet?
It is, yep, it's on. This is from pages 4 and 5. So it's in the smack dab in the middle. Thank you for that question. And you'll want to look for changes in practice impacting case progression. So for those of you that are on teams that had implemented changes in practice, especially in the later part of 2008 or early 2009, you'll likely see some of that, those changes impacting your distributions and your medians. So be on the lookout for that. You can also use distributions to target your efforts. So maybe it seems like a hugely difficult step to have the vast majority of dispositions within 30 days of adjudication, but you might want to set a goal for your team that all of them be within 60 days. And so you might want to target that this top group go down from this report to the next, for example. And some of your teams had too few cases for us to be able to do these full reports. So if there are 10 or less, it's really difficult for us to draw aggregate meaning, especially because a lot of those cases may be siblings, and so those cases are extremely similar to one another. So in those cases, we've provided you with medians, but not distributions. And that's sort of to help you with some guidance, but be careful about interpreting those too dramatically, because they may change quite a bit from one year to the next. And then on page 6, you have the type of discharge. So you can compare changes in discharge to changes in case closure. For example, if you had a dramatic increase in the proportion of adoptions from 2008 to 2009, you might see a slight increase in your time to case closure, because we know adoption cases take longer in general. So that you can use that information to sort of draw trends and information across all of the data that we've provided. We've also provided you with a summary that's unique for each team that sort of gives you some idea of some of the things that we thought were interesting or meaningful from the reports when we looked through them. All right, and then pages 6 and 7, pages 7 and 8 are also in some reports but not in others. And this is, again, based on sample size. So for teams that had larger numbers of TPR and 0 to 3 data, they have these charts that provide information about time to TPR and time to adoption from TPR, and then case progression for ages 0 to 3. Again, across the state, we saw decreases in the amount of time to all of these events between 2008 and 2009, so something we're very excited about. For those of you in teams that didn't have enough data, that doesn't mean that you don't ever have TPR cases or you don't ever have children between the ages of 0 to 3. It just meant that there wasn't enough data for us to provide any summaries. But we have provided an opportunity for you to take a few minutes to talk about action plans or steps that you might be able to take in the future that'll help to improve those aspects. So we would encourage you to do that during the team breakout session. And then the final page that's provided on your report is a new addition, so it's something that we didn't have in the reports from the summit last year, and this targets specifically information for adolescents, so for children ages 12 and older in our systems. So you're able to look at permanency outcomes as well as case progression. All of these cases are 3A cases only, so there aren't any cases that include any 3B settings. So it's important to keep in mind that these are not delinquency cases, these are all abuse and neglect cases. I'd encourage you to take some time to compare the overall permanency and case progression information to the information that you have on the other pages that are for all ages, and see what initiatives or what steps you can take to improve outcomes for this group of adolescents specifically. And you can also look at the proportion of youth in group home care, which is provided on page 2, and see how your team is doing for that. For teams without data, we again have the opportunity for you to take some action steps and discuss those things during the team breakout session this afternoon. So you can take a few minutes to talk about things that you can do in your area to help this population specifically. And again, keep in mind that just because you don't have data doesn't mean you don't have children 12 and older in your system, as I'm sure you all know. All right, so what do we do from here with these data reports? You've thrown a bunch of numbers at us and we don't know what to do with them. These reports are a tool. It's our goal to provide this information with you so that you know how to target your efforts and how the efforts that you're already doing are paying off between different years, and you can expect these in the future as well so that we can continue to track how well we're doing in improving outcomes for youth. So our goal is to improve outcomes for children in care. We would encourage you to think about your team's data during the sessions today and how they sort of complement each other. So for example, the next session is talking about reunification. So in your team, what percentage of cases in your area are being reunified? And what percentage of those cases for 12 and older are being reunified? And what's your team's average time to reunification? All of this information might be helpful for you to use and think about as you're sitting through these reports, or as you're sitting through the rest of the sessions. So also, what does your data suggest about services needed for children? So that will be the talk over lunch. And then this afternoon, what does your data suggest about permanency? Where are children going when they leave the system? All of that information can be useful and drawn from these reports that we've provided for you. And we'd also like to encourage you to use the reports to target additions to your action plans. So not only today, but as you're meeting as teams in the future, we'd encourage you to use these to think about how you can target efforts for children and where those efforts that you've already developed are starting to pay off and you're starting to see a difference in those reports. All right, so do I have any questions from anyone?
This may be obvious here, but I'm not seeing it. On page 4 on the Scottsbluff one, it shows removal to adjudication. It has, what, for our median, 95 and 67, two different numbers. And then when I go back to this last page, page 7, it's 51 and 100.
Yes, and this is for, so let me go back to these and we'll show everybody what pages you're looking at. So for Scottsbluff, we see some information here for medians, but we also see information on these pages that list medians, and how are those different is the question. And those are different because this group is specifically ages 0 to 3. So you can see, and on the next page, you also see medians that are different, and those are for ages 12 and older. So, I mean, keep in mind that the 12 and older and the 0 to 3 are part of this group listed here, but you can see how your efforts, when you're targeting specific age group populations, might vary in case progression. So that's an excellent question. Are there any other questions? Yes, Kelly.
So can you just clarify, maybe I missed it, but that some data reports don't look exactly like this due to the
Correct. Yeah, so cases that had, teams that had 12 or fewer cases that closed overall have a 4-page report that just provides summary data because the distributions aren't very meaningful when you have that few of cases, especially if the likelihood of having siblings when you have that number of cases is also high, and those cases are very similar. And then for cases that are for teams that had fewer than 10 cases that went to TPR or fewer than 10 cases that had 0 to 3 data, we also don't provide that data, again, because it's not, from a statistic standpoint, it's not as compelling because you have a smaller sample size to draw from, and so there's a lot of variability from one year to the next. And the same for the adolescent cases. So in those teams that had fewer than 10 cases, we have action plan opportunities provided for you to talk about what you can do in the future to improve those outcomes for those populations. But there isn't any summary data provided. Any other questions? All right, well, I will be around all day today, and I'll be here in the afternoon session. So if you have any questions at any point in time, please feel free to stop me and ask. I'm fairly easy to spot even in a crowd because of my height. So I'm happy to take any of your questions at any point in time. Thank you very much.